I'm John Evans, and welcome to another episode of One on One. The COVID-19 pandemic has hurt a lot of industries across the United States. The film and TV industry has basically shut down for the past several months. But cameras will start rolling again in Wilmington in September, when crews begin to film a Hallmark Christmas movie here. Trevor Donovan, who is a veteran of more than a half dozen of the Hallmark movies, is one of the stars coming to town for that production. Trevor joins us from his hometown in California. Trevor, thanks so much for joining us on the One on One with John Evans podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, John.
Tell us about this project. It's going to be a military-themed Christmas film, correct?
Yes, military-themed, Navy to be specific. As of right now, the running title is USS Christmas, and it's as it says in the title, it is going to be a Christmas movie. I'm going to be playing a Navy pilot, working with an actress by the name of Jen Lilly, who I haven't had the pleasure of working with yet, but I've heard nothing but great things about her. So I'm really looking forward to it, and it sounds like they're putting a lot of effort into it. And I believe it's their only military-themed Christmas movie this year, so that's pretty exciting too.
Are you confident in going back to work now with all the pandemic and COVID-19 and the virus? Has that been a concern of yours?
I think it's something. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting because I know there's going to be a lot of added regulations and smaller crews, which should make the days a little more difficult to get through. All of the crew having to wear masks and things. There's going to be a lot of very interesting and odd regulations put on the production. So we'll see how it works out. But I know that they've consulted with a ton of medical professionals and different people to make sure we have the safest set possible. So we'll see how it goes. I know it's going to be a little weird, a little awkward, but I think we'll pull it off.
What have you been doing during the pandemic? Obviously, a lot of productions were shut down. So what has Trevor been doing for the last 5 or 6 months?
Well, lots and lots of outdoor activities. Luckily, I'm in my hometown now of Mammoth Lakes in California, and it's a ski resort town in the Sierra Nevada mountain range, and it's just beautiful. And social distancing is not a problem here. So I've been tested several times so I could come up and visit my parents. And I'm staying in a little cabin, and I'm going hiking every day and paddle boarding and just staying active, staying healthy, keeping my mind straight. Reading a lot, just trying to make do with the situation.
Now, you are a veteran of Hallmark movies. My wife and daughters can name each and every one of them. And let me just tell you that interviewing you today is helping me go up on the cool scale in the Evans house, believe me.
Good,
so
winning brownie points with that.
I am, and I have to thank you for that. But I mean, my wife and daughters know them as Marry Me at Christmas and Snow Coming and Nostalgia Christmas. I know them as, he played the movie star who paid for his sister's wedding, or he was the NFL quarterback who was Samantha's high school sweetheart, or he was the widower who co-chairs the town's Christmas parade. You've done a lot of these. Does it get formulaic after a while? You come in, you spend time, you shoot, and then you leave?
Well, they definitely have a formula, and a formula that obviously works very, very well. The movies are very similar in their structure. But like you pointed out, like the Snow Coming one, I got to work with Joe Theismann. That was awesome. They take you to different parts of the world and different sort of fantasy situations. And like you said, I get to play a movie star. I got to play an NFL quarterback. And now I get to play a Navy pilot. While they're similar in their themes and their overall arc of the story, the characters are different. The dynamic between the actor and actresses are different. And I believe they're also starting to push the boundaries a little bit of what they've done in the past in the formula and the structure. But regardless, it's always, they have a way of hiring such amazing people, like really good, down to earth, genuine people. So the experience itself, because we shoot these things in 15 days, and to shoot a full almost 2-hour movie in 15 days is quite a feat in and of itself. So they've definitely got a system going, and they've got very professional, very efficient people who make a really good product. So it's a really enjoyable time, and I've never been to North Carolina, so I'm really excited about that. That's another thing. These things take me to different places I've never been before. So yeah, it's just a really fun experience, and like I said, the people are awesome.
You are going to love it. We're right here along the coast. You're going to be able to go surfing. You're going to be able to go hiking.
You just said my favorite word.
Surfing. You're a surfer guy? Well, I know that you're going to be able to do some great surfing. But we talked before we started rolling here. It may be 90 degrees and humid, and you're going to be shooting a Christmas movie. So does that add any more complications? Oh, I got to wipe the sweat off my brow because I'm sweating to beat the band when I'm supposed to be in 30 or 40 degree temperatures?
Yeah, it's a situation we run into typically because you have to shoot these Christmas movies earlier in the year, which typically ends up spring, summer, fall, where it could be almost 90 degrees. And so it's something we run into all the time. There's a lot of indoor shooting on this one, so I imagine we'll have some air conditioning, so it won't be as difficult, but just a lot of fake shivering and
and fake snow.
Yeah. Oh, and they have got that down to a science as well. The fake snow, I'm not going to give away any secrets, but they've got a lot of techniques to make it look absolutely legitimate. So,
all right, this is a Sheila question. My wife. We talked about this weekend. Hallmark is such a feel-good channel. It reminds you to be kind and thankful. Does that play into your decision to sign on for these kind of roles? Because usually these movies, at least in every one that I have seen while watching it with my wife and daughter, usually they leave you with a smile on your face. Does that influence you as an actor?
It's a huge part of it. I mean, part of what I love so much about these is I know that my grandmother, my aunts and uncles, and young 5-year-old niece, everyone can sit down and watch these, and especially around the holidays where the family is together. You can have these on the TV, and there's always an uplifting moral message to it. There's always a happy ending at the end, and it's the country and the world and life is pretty chaotic right now. And these types of movies can bring in those little, moments and raise in a couple hours of positive energy and sunshine and a smile and reminders that family is most important. And so, yeah, to be a part of that and to be recognized for these things, just like you said, your wife and your daughter, they're big fans of these. I get approached all the time since I've started doing these things, and people love them. And it makes me feel really, really good.
What was life like growing up in California for a young Trevor? When did you start doing modeling, and when did acting start to get on your radar? I know you did. You got a degree in graphic design, if I'm not mistaken. So when did modeling and acting really start to come on the horizon for you?
Well, I ended up in Los Angeles when I was 23 to finish college in graphic design at the Art Institute of California. And I kind of fell into the modeling thing just because it's such a hub there in Los Angeles and modeling agencies. And so I started working my last year of college as a model, which somehow segued and transformed into taking acting classes. It was just kind of a very organic and unexpected process. So I really started taking classes around 25, got my first job around 27. And then just before my 30th birthday, I got 90210, which is kind of where my career really started to take off. And so it's been sort of an unexpected trip. I didn't take theater or drama in high school. I didn't, I was ski racing. I was more of an athlete than an academic.
Well, you made the U.S. teen ski team.
I was on my way to the U.S. ski team to train with them. I was racing against U.S. ski team members in the western half of the United States, and the next step would have been going to the U.S. development team. And I was just worn out. I was a senior in high school. I've been doing it for 10 years. It's much like gymnastics in that it just takes over your whole life. It's year round and it's very dedicated. And I loved it, but I also kind of wanted to experience other things. And growing up in a small town, I wanted to go out and go to college and go to the beach and, you know, just experience new stuff. So I'm glad I did.
Oh, yeah.
I did miss the racing world, but pretty happy where I ended up.
Yeah, I would say you made a pretty good decision there.
Yeah.
You mentioned the 90210 reboot and your character, Teddy. You played a teenager who was struggling on whether to decide to come out and let everybody know he was gay. I have read, and tell me, a lot of teenagers reached out to you on how important that role was for them. Did you have any idea as you were shooting it how big an influence and really how big that was going to be for the teenagers of 2009 through 2013?
You know, you can never be sure. I was hopeful that it would be, but I have got to be completely honest with you. There was a bit of selfishness in that process because I was nervous and scared going into that. I'm playing a gay character on TV where it wasn't as prevalent, 8 years ago,
right.
9 years ago. And so I was a little self-involved for a while. Just, I wanted to tell the story honestly and genuinely and not have it be a flash in the pan, gratuitous thing. And, really show the struggle this kid had to deal with just coming to terms with it himself and then having to come out to his friends and to his family who no one had any idea. It was a very unassuming character shift. So when I started getting messages from not only teenagers but adults as well, how it helped them, then I started to realize, oh wow, this is actually, I need to quit thinking about myself and realize how much it's helping other people, which really added that much more to the soul of the character and to the pride I hold in being a part of it. So
well, I mean, I would imagine, if you had that trepidation, was there a single point where you said, okay, all right, and got you past that trepidation at any point? Was it a single message? Was it a single day when somebody said something?
There were numerous messages. Well, there was one, and I was reading so many at the time, but there was one in particular that says, you saved my life. I would be dead without your character. Just something to that effect.
Wow.
And I've had several like that where they said I was considering taking my life, or somebody's sister saying you saved my brother's life, or, so. And not me personally, but the storyline. And that's why I'm also proud of how the CW and how 90210, the producers, the writers, handled the coming out story. Because it was more of a coming out story than an actual just
right
gay story. It was like how difficult it is to face that. So there were so many messages and so many moments where I just realized how much that character touched people. So
yeah, I've done a lot of work with Habitat for Humanity here, emceed a lot of their Golden Hammer breakfasts, and actually I was out on a build one day, helped nail in a wall, and that house and that wall is still standing 12 years later. How did you get involved?
Very, very good. Well, just as you start getting, once I got on the show, you start getting sort of approached by different organizations, and that one appealed to me especially, because my dad, he's a retired general contractor, but I grew up on job sites, learning to frame, learning to remodel, learning to do all these things. So tangibly, it was right up my alley. And I love the structure of it. They create these communities, they build homes for families that are struggling, not that are these people are working individuals and just need help, and then within that community, they provide opportunity for the kids to work and contribute to that community. So it's not just something given to these people, it's opportunity given to these people to these people work for it and get to work within that community. So I just think the overall structure of it is just amazing.
I've always loved that it was a hand up, not a handout. That's the one thing that I've always loved about it.
That's the actual term I was looking for. It's a hand up, not a handout.
Yeah. One of the things that really touched me was watching you one day when you were on a talk show and you had written the Love Always Dogbert and Tito book. And I've had dogs all my life, and I've got Henry, our 12-year-old chocolate lab right now, who is, still kind of struggling, but still thinking he's 2 years old, not 12. But as an animal lover, you documented your German Shepherd Dogbert's disease, and I saw how difficult that was for you. But how important was it for you to be able to do that and share that with so many others?
Well, it was huge, because prior to him starting to show symptoms and stuff, I was completely unaware of degenerative myelopathy. I had no idea what it was. And then as I started researching it, and it's a devastating disease. And it's so painful to watch. The dog, dogs don't know what's going on. They're just losing feeling in their hind legs. And it was so painful watching. And it's preventable. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, it can be bred out. It can be detected, and it can be, you avoid breeding two dogs that have the gene, it can be tested. It costs $60. It's nothing. Yeah. It's absolutely doable. And you send the test out to a University of Michigan, other places. So getting the word out, because going through it and having to put him down when he was not even 9 years old was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
Well, I applaud you, and I didn't mean to make you upset.
No. This is good. I haven't cried about it in years. So
for anybody out there, I suggest you Google Trevor Donovan, Dogbert, and look at the video from the day that you were on the talk show. He was in the wheelchair, and you said he was still happy and still going around. But I can only imagine how difficult that was. But you wrote the book, and I've always said, thinking about being able to writing is one thing, but actually sitting down and writing a book, how difficult was that?
Well, I'll tell you, I did have some help. There are some followers, Ryan Field and his writing partners. So they follow me on Instagram and different social media platforms, and they are writers. So they helped with, I documented it all. So we collaborated with it. But it was fun because you got to create this make-believe world where the dogs talk to each other and they talk to the squirrel, and you sort of get in the minds of these dogs and their perspective on the world, and how their world is these few blocks, and there's so much going on, and there's so much excitement, and so much. And I thought it ended up being pretty cool, and I did all the graphic design and stuff for it on my own, but I definitely had some help with the writing aspect of it.
Yeah, I salute you, because I know how much I love dogs, and I couldn't fathom if I was watching my dog have that degenerative canine version of ALS. And like you said, they don't have any concept of what's happening to them. Somebody explains it to us, we can come to grips with it, but they don't.
Yeah, Exactly. You can see the confusion, and they're looking back at their hind legs and wondering what's going on, and then trying to get outside to go to the bathroom, and they can't do it. It's the positive thing I would say is that they're not in pain. It's in a painful thing, but it's still, you could tell it takes a toll on their mental capacity. It takes a toll on their mood, and by the end of Dogbert's journey, it was starting to make its way up into his organs and things, which is why we, humanely had to.
Yeah. For all those fans out there of Trevor Donovan, you may also not have known how much this guy is an anti-bullying messenger. You went to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to Deer Lake School to deliver an anti-bullying message. I watched the video again as I was doing research, and it's just amazing that you would take the time to do something like that, because somebody reached out and said, I'm in need of help, and you decided to do that. I just wanted to, again, salute you for that. You didn't have to do that, but that's something that I really thought was a cool message. Somebody who can get out there, and maybe somebody who was bullying in the audience can see a big TV star, a big movie star says, I shouldn't do this. You may have changed more than one life that day.
I definitely like to think so. I hope so. Again, this is another collaboration. So it kind of started with, I experienced bullying growing up. I think everybody did to one degree or another. But these days, with the advent of social media and the internet, you can't get away from it, and it's forever. And kids are bullying from behind their computer screen and doing these things. It's just awful. And there's a lot of that on social media. And Jackie Jaros, who is the middle school counselor there at Deer Lakes Middle School, she is the one that kind of really made all this happen. She organized the whole thing at the school, and we got together. I've had lunch with her a bunch. We've been friends now for years. And we really wanted to take these social media platforms where all this bullying is happening, and realizing, well, if it can be used for bad and bullying, we can also use it for good. Mm-hmm. Really trying to focus on using this stuff for good. So that's what I like to focus on my social media platforms on, is positivity, uplifting stuff.
And your dogs. And your dogs are stars in your video.
I tell you what, they're a part of getting more eyes on me too, because everybody loves dogs, and they love the dogs more than they love me. So they come to see the dogs, and then maybe I can squeeze a message in there.
Oh, that was hilarious. You said to a young lady you sat in on a little interview with a teenager, and your advice, she asked you for advice. You said, be ready to change your path or your trajectory, because it never works out exactly the way you plan it. Has that happened to you? When did it happen to you?
That's the definition of my life. I've been kind of a bouncing soul of sorts, with not much of a plan or structure, but always sort of a positive outlook and a lot of drive and determination. Once I went off to college, and like you said, I got a degree in graphic design, really aiming towards that way. And then when I started getting around the movie industry, I grew up in an area where stunts was a daily activity. Everything I've done, it's been outdoors. And so I started going in the direction of the stunt world, but somehow got pulled back into the acting. And, you just got to roll with the punches and don't be discouraged if things don't come out the way that you plan, because, like they said, these cliches exist for a reason. One door opens, one door closes, another door opens, or, you take this path. There's going to be plenty of opportunities, and you just got to be ready and open-minded for them. And mine keep happening. Like, I thought I'd be on certain TV shows. This Hallmark opportunity came up, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it. And as soon as I did, it proved itself to be the best decision I've made in my career.
Who's the person you'd like to meet, and why?
Who's the person? I've been so lucky. I've met so many incredible people. In the political world, I've met the Dalai Lama.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, you were on a program with the Dalai Lama, Jimmy Carter, and Bill Clinton.
Yeah, Mikhail Gorbachev.
Yeah.
And sitting at the table with Sean Penn and Kerry Kennedy, I just spoke to this morning on the phone. She's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
I've just been so lucky.
Is there someone you maybe want to work with, or someone you would really like to meet, have lunch with, that you haven't had the chance yet?
Well, I would love to work in I guess you'd call them today's Rat Pack, with Matt Damon, George Clooney, Brad Pitt. I'd love to work with Quentin Tarantino, David Lynch. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. Yeah, I want to do a movie in the vein of like Ocean's 11. Would love to work with Brad Pitt and George Clooney, and Robert Redford.
Yeah, that's on a lot of people's list, I imagine.
Yeah.
You've been able to travel a lot of places. What's a bucket list place you'd like to go that you haven't yet?
I haven't been to Asia, so I want to go to Japan. Japan, and then also I'd love to go to Indonesia, Philippines, that area of the world. I would love to surf in Bali and Fiji. So over on that side of the planet.
What's the coolest thing you've been able to do for someone since you've become successful, whether it's been mom, dad, a family member? The coolest thing you've been able to do because you're now a success?
I would say, well, you know what, my brother, he's a firefighter for Sacramento City, and years ago, he has since closed his gym, but years ago he opened a CrossFit gym, and I got to help him financially, get the equipment and stuff for that, which I wouldn't have been able to do if I hadn't been on the show at the time. So being able to help my brother out like that in his endeavors was really cool. Plus, I mean, he's a national hero. He's a firefighter. So,
amen.
Yeah. Anyway. So
what's next? I know you're going to be in Wilmington, but what's next? What do you want to do and take your career to the next level? I know acting, you're solid, you're a well-known commodity, but would you like to branch out and do different things in the industry?
I've dipped my toes into the pool of producing, which I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it yet. I like the artistic aspect of making a movie. So right now I'm in the process with my manager, and who's also my producing partner. We're, maybe trying to do a couple of our own projects. So a little bit of writing, maybe a little bit of directing. Outside of that, I'm always looking for philanthropic work to do. So,
well,
again, keeping dynamic and keeping an open mind.
I know when you get here to Wilmington, we're going to have to introduce you to some of the best surfers in the area, because if you're a surf guy, we can hook you up with some great surfers in southeastern North Carolina. That'd
be great. I would love it. I mean, I did grow up in the mountains. I'm not the best surfer, but I've been surfing for a long time, so I hold my own.
All right, Trevor Donovan, I appreciate you taking the time today. Looking forward to having you in Wilmington when they start rolling on the movie in September, another Hallmark military-themed Christmas movie. Trevor, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.
A big thank you to Trevor Donovan for sparing some of his time for this week's podcast interview. Look for him around Wilmington when crews start shooting that Hallmark Christmas movie in September, and they're only going to be here for about 15 days, so keep your eyes peeled. You can also find out more about Trevor at his website, trevordonovan.info, and he's a great follow on social media. You can find him on Instagram, on Twitter, and also on Facebook. And before we go, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please download and subscribe to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast on whatever app you use to listen to your favorite shows. And if you would be so kind, please leave us a rating or a review. The more feedback we have from people like you, the higher we'll be listed on the apps, and the better chance we'll have of bringing in even more new listeners. I'm John Evans. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of One-on-One. Be safe.